this is my second video on how Titusville is going to raise all of our taxes very close to 10%, as well as our utilities, water, etc. At a time when a lot of people are having trouble paying their rent, holding onto their houses. I want you to focus on this slide once again and note the part where it says that the real millage rate, tax rate, is 9.81, which is characterized as a tax increase. Once again, I'm going to focus mainly on what City Attorney Emeritus Dwight Seavers had to say to the council, because he was laying it out there about the North Brevard Economic Development Zone and how they're getting taxpayers' money. And this is something you need to pay attention to.
For the record, my name is Dwight Seavers. At the last meeting, I expressed concern about the 10 or 9.81% tax increase. Became interested primarily in looking at my own tax and noticed it was going to go up 13.5%. I suggested and asked if you were going to look at and increase other general fund revenue sources on page 57 through page 60 of your budget that I looked at online by the same or equivalent percentage. I gave you examples. I've heard no response to that. I asked if you're going to reduce some of the general fund expenses on page 61 through 63 of the budget, and I received no response to that. I did stress at the last meeting that the impact primarily would be on the retirement community, and in discussions during the last meeting with your staff and others, there seemed to suggest that many residential property owners may have a tax decrease. I think all of you probably saw the article in the newspaper about the percentage of Brevard County-wide. Out of curiosity, going on to the tax assessor's office, I started the south end of the city arbitrarily on a map, chose a lot, had no idea what was on the lot, and you will see them listed in this the first page I handed out to you. The average increase, and I excluded from that the Indian River Avenue near City Hall property and the apartment complex, the average in the city of Titusville was 31.42% increase in assessed value. I did the same thing essentially for business and industrial properties. And I thought I wanted to see how they were being impacted because of the valuations. You can see the list that I've given to you, and the average increase on business and industrial properties from 21 to 22 is 3.9%, significantly different than that of residential. So my concern, as I expressed to you at the last meeting, was that this illustrates that residential properties primarily will be carrying a lot of the tax burden as such, as reflected. And for residential property owners, thank goodness for the constitutional amendment, Save Our Homes. Otherwise, it would be a lot worse. But I feel for those individuals that have recently bought property, bought a different house in Titusville, they have the inflated value and not the benefit of Save Our Homes. So you can see from this, and this was done randomly because I was just curious. In addition, at the last meeting, I discussed the zone. I said I was aware of some of the successes of the zone, and I pointed out, I believe, major issues and suggested that economically, Titusville is in a different position today than it was 10 years ago. In addition, I pointed out that that's when I urged Mayor Tully to support the zone at that time. I believe it is time to relook at the zone, particularly because with a diversion of $822,000 in this budget, and even larger amounts in future years more than likely, and the desperate need the general fund has for tax dollars to support public safety and other important things of the city. I know the zone is represented by the county attorney's office. However, that does not excuse some of the major issues that have occurred, and the city can withdraw from the zone at any time, provided adequate protection is in place for payment of outstanding debt. I have no clue what that outstanding debt, it may be so large you're going to have the zone for umpty-ump years. I don't know. Do you know? Do you really know? And do you really know what's being approved? I hope that you do not shrink or ignore your clear responsibilities to the overwhelming majority of the residents of Titusville. I realize there is a clear power struggle in structure in Titusville that's trying to control the council, staff, and various boards and commissions in directing growth and development, and maybe even deriving some personal benefit and profit from it. As such, I would hope you would do the right thing for your citizens who consistently support the city.
The North Brevard Economic Development Zone had a contract or has a contract with the developer which requires them to abide by the laws, and that's what they're doing. So I just don't want out there, I just don't want you to throw out there that someone is doing something illegal when they're not. Okay?
Can I respond?
Yeah, reply.
First of all, you're wrong. The contract does have language in it about bids. However, and that was, what?
Well, how am I wrong?
I will demonstrate it to you if you'll let me speak. That contract was signed in June of 2021. In the December 11th meeting of 2020, that contract was discussed by the zone. Mr. Honeycutt already had the contract at that time before the contract had been signed because he was concerned how he was going to be paid. And I'll show you the minutes. He knew he had that contract and it had already been awarded to him. What competitive bidding has there been? And this was 6 months before the contract was even signed. And what they did based upon his request, because they were going to withhold 25%, he talked them into reducing that down to 10%. So I'm sorry, but it had already been awarded to him, a board member.
All right,
And
go ahead, finish that last sentence.
it's as clear as can be, and I can show you.
Okay.
All right,
Well,
I'm really proud to say that I know Dwight Seavers. He's a man of incredible intelligence and bravery and decency. And I believe him. I think he can prove it. I have a question about one particular property as well. And here's the first page of the sales agreement. Now, IT Fitz is Robin Fisher and Stan Retz. This is an agreement for a property where they're selling this for $1,500,000. If we look at the records from the Brevard County property appraiser, they bought this same property for $160,000, nothing close to $1 million, but now they're asking $1 million, right? $500,000 for the same property, and it's only a couple years later. So Mr. Fisher and Mr. Red stand to make an incredible amount of profit on this property, and it's kind of like, how can that be? But if you look at this clause in their sales agreement, what you find out is that it's expected that the buyer will apply for money from the city of Titusville, money that's for affordable housing and or money that comes from the coronavirus recovery fund, local, it says. And if that if he doesn't get that money, the deal's off. I don't know for sure if this is one of those deals that Dwight Severs was talking about, where people are basically flipping a property and making an enormous profit because the money's going to come from the taxpayers to fund the improvements and plump up the price. I don't know that for sure. I do think this is one of those cases that the city should look into.